Hi, welcome to the Microsoft Partner Showcase. I'm Brian Hitney, a cloud solution architect at Microsoft focused on data and analytics. As data estates continue to diversify, spanning multiple clouds, endless combinations of data sources, schemas, and file formats, data integration is often a difficult task. While Microsoft has built some fantastic tools such as Azure Data Factory, Synapse, and Fabric pipelines, and now data flows, it might not always be the best tool for the job. If you're looking to build some data movement pipelines quickly and have them all managed as a single software as a service, check out what Fivetran offers. My colleague Chris and I did just that, sitting down with Kelly from Fivetran, who discusses some of the challenges of data orchestration and takes us on a tour of what Fivetran can do. Let's get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Partner Showcase. I'm Brian Hitney, Cloud Solution Architect at Microsoft, focused on data and analytics. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Chris Mitchell. Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Good. Hi, everyone. I'm also a cloud solution architect like Brian, and I focus on data and analytics as well. And today we're joined by Kelly from Fivetran. Kelly, take it away.
Yeah, Brian and Chris, thank you so much. It is a real pleasure to be on the show today. Actually, I've been looking forward to this all week. I look after for Fivetran, the global partner sales engineering organization. So we work with great technology partners like Microsoft. We also work with consulting services partners, think SIs and GSIs. Everything around how do you approach data products and solutions from a modern way. And so our team's doing enablements, we do technical content, create that, and then help deliver go-to-market events from a technical perspective. So looking forward to the conversation today.
Yeah, great to have you here. And Fivetran has really come a long way over the past few years, but in the last couple of years, it seems like, and I don't know if it's just me or seeing it a lot more. So why don't you give us a little bit of history about Fivetran and essentially I was reading some of the evolution of it as a service into this, basically the offering that is there today. And it's a good story, and I'm sure you're the best one to tell it. So give us a little bit of that background.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Brian. Yeah, so my history with Fivetran actually starts probably 3 years before I got to Fivetran. I've been here a little over a year. So my previous role, which I didn't mention, I was running go-to-market at an SI, a consulting services firm, HashMap. So during probably the 3 or so years prior to joining Fivetran, I recommended Fivetran, I don't know, 100, 125 times over that 3-year period. So when I got over here, I obviously was a firm believer in the technology, but the company and the people, kind of this overall combination, I really do believe we've got an incredible opportunity that George and Taylor have created for us. So the history of Fivetran, we started in 2012. So George Frazier, who's our CEO, Taylor Brown, our CEO, started in 2012. They were part of the Y Combinator incubator program. There's been some incredible companies alongside Fivetran that have come out of that. The most interesting part of that story is, and they tell this, by the way, way better than I do. I'm just, this is like, multiple parties down the road. We actually were not looking to create a data movement or data integration platform. They were looking to create a vertically integrated data analysis tool, like some special pivot tables that could operate on the early cloud data platforms. Also, interestingly, these two gentlemen knew each other growing up, and their family history goes back multiple generations. So that's kind of cool too.
Yeah.
So when they were looking to build this, pivot table for big data, they had a client that said, or a customer that said, hey, this is great, but man, we can't get anything into our data warehouse so that we can actually use your pivot table. And so can you build us something? And of course, young company, always looking to maybe do other things or at least get their solution working. So they built a connector from Salesforce to the cloud, and kind of, I guess you could say the rest is history. The word spread a little bit, and all of a sudden they said, wait a minute, I think we've got product market fit over here, almost by accident, and so first signed customer, 2015. So what is that, eight years or so ago. Today, we've got 6,500 customers, all sizes. We've got large enterprises all over the world, all industries that use Fivetran as their data movement platform.
That's pretty cool growth. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how like you aim to solve problem A, but then another problem emerges, and that becomes the bigger market space. So
yeah, I mean, you look at what, and you guys are really familiar too. You look at what is involved in building a data pipeline from scratch. I talk about this a lot with our partners, and a lot of times consulting services background, I frame it up in sprints. How many 2-week sprints is this going to take me to design it, build it, test it, deploy it, document it? I come from Hadoop. Didn't really talk too much. I come from Hadoop land, where each Apache project seemed to have, some great documentation, some not great, but documentation is so important. How do I automate it? How do I maintain it? And then maybe the most important thing of all, when something changes in that source, or when something changes in that destination, how do I refactor for that? Or how do I refactor for a particular edge case? It's really, really tough to do.
Yeah. Well, not to mention the fact that the Hadoop ecosystem, there's a lot of hubris in there. It's like they look at one product and they say, hey, for example, Scoop doesn't do exactly what we need it to do, so let's just throw it out and start over instead of trying to figure out how to augment it and extend it, right? And so a Hadoop implementation a lot of times is like a point in time. It's like a snapshot of what was hot then when you started.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Chris. The consulting company that I was at, we built a really probably not great version of Fivetran using Scoop and Uzi. Kind of like this Scoop Uzi template to move data from various sources into HDFS and Project Hive. But no, it's, you say, hey, I build from scratch, or even sometimes when I'm using, some lower code tools. I mean, there's a lot of negative engineering involved in just keeping all of those things I mentioned above up and running, or just watching over it. I had talked to Jeremiah Lowen at Prefect, and he's really he gave me a great education on negative engineering. He said, like, it's all those time consuming little minutia tasks that a lot of times could be really frustrating. You just want to throw up your hands and go, why am I doing this? That data engineers or application engineers have to do to ensure that whatever that final objective is, a cleanly running data pipeline, a perfectly orchestrated cloud data platform, whatever that primary objective is, you got to do all this stuff in the background. It just takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort, energy, and in most cases, money. It wasn't us, actually. I guess it was a third-party study, but one of our product managers wrote about this, Kevin Kim. It's a really good blog post. And it talked about the total cost of maintaining data pipelines. And his one of the key metrics that stood out to me was that he said the average data engineering team spends a little over $500,000, 544 or 520, I'm sorry, I think was the exact number, to just maintain, do your break fix, do your operational oversight. It's not really creating new value. And it's tough if that's what you're spending 44% of your time on. It's no wonder that data product and data services backlog is just growing, and
sure.
It's hard to burn down.
Yep.
Yeah. That reminds me a little bit of that. We hear it a lot, and we heard it at Build recently. Quote from any chief data officer is, I want to be the chief data officer, not the chief integration officer.
That's right.
So,
I like that. I was out at Build, Ed Levin on our team, and Andy Baduri and myself, and we got to sit down with the Cosmos DB team actually out there and have a great conversation. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so my understanding is we're going to dive into some demos here, because I think that's the absolute best way to start understanding how a product works, right? That's what I do. I go right to a demo and check it out and see how it works. We might ask some questions along the way if we can, but I'm looking forward to seeing it firsthand.
And I would also say too, while you're in there doing a demo, I mean, obviously the folks that are going to be listening to this, they're going to be aware of other, Azure data movement products, things like Azure Data Factory, Synapse pipelines, and the like. And I'd love you to call out where appropriate, if there's anything that's a specific value add that native Azure wouldn't handle out of the box, because obviously, you're solving some more advanced business problems that we don't natively make very easy in ADF and Synapse.
Yeah, and really, I mean, if I'm an Azure customer today, I've always got ADF in my tool bag, and it is a really, really good tool. The way that I think about this, and I talked about all these projects that we had done from a consulting services standpoint back at HashMap. The way I always think about this is, what were my clients or what were my customers asking me for? And they really never said, hey, I need this perfect, cloud data platform or data integration solution, or this perfect supply chain optimization. They said, Kelly, I need to simplify things. I need to go fast. I think about speed and relevancy. Gentleman at HubSpot talks about this a lot. Speed to me does equal relevancy. If you can't achieve that, obviously, with governance, with the proper security, all those things, it's tough. As a CDO, CTO, CIO, I'm out the door if I can't do that. And then keeping it all working, not having to, do all the operational oversight, making it self-serve, scalable, secure, governance, all those kind of things. Those are the kind of things that I think, Chris, to your point, that I listen for when I'm talking to customers, when I'm talking to partners. It's less about give me a perfect data pipeline. It's more about, what are those key dimensions that you're trying to achieve within your data program, whether it's centralized or decentralized, that we feel like we could help achieve? And to your question about ADF, if there's particular dimensions in there that maybe there's not an ADF source or target today that would require possibly a long time to develop and then maintain and everything, that's where I'd say, hey, take a look at Fivetran. See if maybe there's not something that could get that next Synapse workload or Azure Databricks workload cranking all that much quicker, so you can get to that customer 360 outcome or that supply chain optimization outcome or that healthcare or FinServ outcome that you're looking for. So
time to value, right? That's the
exactly
the important thing.
Yeah. Speed to impact, time to value. We frame it up a lot of different ways, but that's, for me, that's always a big one. So do we want to jump into the demo? I'd love to.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, cool. Well, let me share here, team. All right. First, let me show you what I got up here. This is the Fivetran UI. I've also got Synapse open up here. We leverage Synapse, and we'll show that as our destination today. Got a variety of sources. Think about what we may want to do there. May show. So one thing that you'll notice here, I like to call out this number here. Let me zoom in on this real quick. Big 541. Everybody see that? 541 sources. I cannot keep up anymore. It seems like we're adding 10, I'm not kidding, like 10 to 12 sources per week. It is unbelievable. So 541 right now. The other thing I'll point out, so Synapse, we support within the Azure context, Azure Synapse, Azure Databricks, but then also if you have a need to persist data, let's say you're on-prem with an Oracle database and you want to move it to Azure SQL, Azure SQL Server, another Azure SQL derivative, we can do that as well. So there's a variety of options there. Really soon, and I know we chatted about this a little bit early on, but very soon you're also going to see ADLS as a destination supporting Delta tables. So that's really cool.
Great. Yeah, that'll align very well with where the Fabric product's going. So
absolutely. No, that was to see, and I know it's relatively early days on that, but to be a part of the Fivetran ecosystem and Microsoft ecosystem together as that's moving, we're pure SaaS. We're a pure SaaS product, and where you're going with that particular solution, I think is they should dovetail nicely. Again, going back to what we talked about, using ADF in certain use cases, using Fivetran where it makes sense. So, all right, so we got a Synapse destination. I'm not going to configure that today. It's a really light configuration. You might imagine, hey, I've got to be able to authenticate to Synapse. I need to know where I'm going to send the data, those kind of things. What I thought I might focus on, well, a couple of things. 541 sources. 4 major categories of sources for Fivetran. So databases, we cover all sizes, all flavors, all variants, all needs of latency around databases. Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, all types of databases there. In fact, if I type in Oracle, you can see a lot of different Oracle connect, which is probably what we'll do today. I may do Oracle, but I also want to mention, maybe this is another area, Chris, you ask about some of the differentiation with Fivetran. We've got a lot of optionality and a lot of deployment options as it relates to SAP. If you have a Microsoft Azure customer that says, I've got to have, by the way, do you either of you ever use the word real time in terms of analytics?
It's come up before. It's a new thing.
Yeah.
I try to avoid it. So
yeah,
probably on the marketing side, you may see Fivetran real time. I use the word continuous.
Yeah.
Like continuous, because when I say real time, everyone say, what do you mean, Kelly? Is this millisecond latency off of a
near
shard
real
board?
time?
That is the problem with real time, is that like how you define real time could be, different to a lot of people. And so, so I always like to try and pivot the question to like, well, how much latency can you tolerate, right? Are we talking about sub-second? Are we talking about sub-minute? Are we talking about sub-hour, right? Because real time for some people is like, hey, as long as the transaction is in my analytical store within an hour, it's fine. But some people, it's like, no, as soon as possible. Yesterday, right?
Exactly. And some people, I've even asked, and I said, well, once a day is pretty real time for us compared to what we were doing before, So, anyway, we have when you look at what we do, and I was talking databases as a source. So SAP, obviously, you're going to underlie that with HANA, you're going to underlie that with Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, maybe Sybase. We have a range of options from continuous replication through to, say, 1 minute replication through to even 5 minute, anywhere in there. You say, I need to get as close to continuous as possible or as close to real time as possible all the way through. So that's really cool. A lot of different options there. We go after the data via the application layer with NetWeaver. We can go after the database logs, et cetera. So
well, I would say that's a pretty unique differentiation because, traditional data movement technologies, if you want to go real time, you're typically architecting your solution quite a bit differently or going to a different platform, right? Instead of saying, hey, I'm using a batch-oriented data movement technology like a pipeline in Synapse or ADF, where you can do a schedule and you can do micro batch, but it's still a batch-oriented process. When you go real time, it implies something different, and you're typically using a different tool. You're using, event hubs, you're using Spark Streaming, you're using, Stream Analytics or something like that in the mix. So.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a great topic to explore, just, digging into databases as a source. I know we probably don't have all the time today, but a lot of how we frame up our solution today and what we deliver to the market came about from an acquisition that we made 2 years ago, a company called HVR, which stood for high volume replication. And so HVR at the time had SAP customers, large Oracle, large SQL Server, large DB2 customers all over the world, brought them in, and they've really helped us not only from a product standpoint, but just to think differently overall about, what is the scope of this data movement market, especially related to databases and SAP. So I'm not moving very fast here. I'm still on this first piece. So databases.
I need to shut up and let you talk.
No, this is great. I love these questions. Databases, we talked, including all the databases under SAP. Applications, so things like Salesforce. I think I got Salesforce open up. Yeah, Salesforce, Zendesk, any SaaS-based applications, file systems, object stores, eventing systems like Confluent, Kafka, those kind of things. All of those can be sources. And if you don't see a source that on the list as you're going through here, we have a buy request program that is anybody can submit in and say, hey, I've got this SaaS solution. I've got, here's an API. It's publicly documented. Or can you build me a connector, Fivetran, a first party connector for that? And we're cranking a lot of those out too. So that's pretty cool. All right, so let's do today. Let me make sure I've got some I've got a couple of screens here. Make sure I've got my authentication details here. Let's do an Oracle to Synapse today. I would say that's a pretty common use case. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Oracle source to Synapse. Okay. Oracle source to Synapse. So let's do that. So this is a very, talk to customers, talk to clients. Everybody's, Kelly, give me predictable, give me standardized. I want to see like the same thing. Don't give me all this different stuff. Every one of our setup pages certainly has to adjust to, the type of source, right? I don't have to put in SID and PDB names and all that kind of stuff for Salesforce. Those are Oracle specific. I don't even have to put those in for SQL Server. But in general, all of our setup pages are going to look like this. You're going to have whatever the information is, the decisions that you need to make for setup here. And then you're going to have this very detailed in the right nav, this gray nav on the right side. You're going to have a very detailed documentation that takes you through exactly what to do step by step. Also gives you a lot of tips about things like, oh, okay, for this Oracle source, LogMiner or Fivetran Teleport Sync. In a SQL Server source, it would be CT or CDC or Teleport or those kind of things. There's a lot of options there. So you can see we're going against Synapse. It'll be this instance right here, and you can see my top table here is Animal Crossing. I'm pointing that out because we are going to name this one Accelerate. I'm just going to call this Accelerate Microsoft. I don't know, for Oracle, we'll do that. Accelerate Microsoft for Oracle. So I don't have to create the schema in Synapse. I don't have to create any tables in Synapse or anything like that. When this data persists across, you're going to see it show up here because AN is the first. This is going to be AC, so it should show up first there. Accelerate Microsoft for Oracle. Name that whatever I want. Now let me go out and I need to. You know what? I've got my my credentials are actually, hold on. Let's get to do one more thing here. My credentials are an Oracle RDS instance. My apologies. I thought it was just an Oracle in a VM. It's actually Oracle RDS. So let's do that same thing. Accelerate Microsoft. And then I need to provide Fivetran the authentication information. Where is this server? Give me the host name, give me the IP address, and that's what it is there. Because when I looked over there, I said, wait a minute, this is not sitting in a data center somewhere. My port is going to be 2484. We're going to do a direct connect here. I am not a user on this Oracle instance, but Fivetran is. Grab password here. You can see, I mean, it's pretty simple to, as long as you have the authentication information, stuff is pretty quick to get configured. That's my SID name. I wouldn't have that obviously with other databases. Now this is really interesting. We're going to connect directly today, but for any database, I've got multiple options on how I can connect with Fivetran. I can connect direct. I can go SSH, reverse SSH. I can use Azure Private Link. I can go reverse proxy. I can use a VPN connection. There are a lot of different ways that I can connect here to my Azure Synapse instance. So if I want to use Private Link and keep everything in the context of my own Azure tenant, I can do that. Last decision, because first thing Fivetran is going to do is going to persist any of the historical information in this database that we select over to Synapse, and then Fivetran's automatically going to set us up for incremental syncs. In this case, with this is a standard Oracle connector. I have one more decision. I can go LogMiner or Teleport. Now, on our Fivetran LDP solution, I can actually choose going against the native binary log. So supplemental logging is turned on. Those types of things, it gives me exceptionally fast, that continuous replication that we talked about earlier. In this case, I'll leave it at LogMiner. So let's do a save and test. Fivetran is going to go through and do all these background tests. And interestingly, we will not, maybe not interestingly, this is just like a hard and fast rule. We're not going to move any data, zero data in motion without encryption. And so for a direct connect, I've got to have a TLS certificate on that Oracle database, which you can see I do, and I have to make a declaration of which certificate I want to use before Fivetran will let you move forward. If I didn't have a certificate on that source, forget about it. We're not going to move past getting the source created.
Now, is that only when you're doing over the internet, or can you disable that for private link, or you're always going to encrypt on the wire even with private link?
Yeah, we will. One thing we're going to do is whether data. There are times where data can sit ephemerally in the Fivetran service. In that case, we'll encrypt it with AES 256. But any data in motion, it has to be encrypted. We just don't move data without encryption. Specific to behind the private, if it's within the context of private link. Man, I have to check on that one, Chris. I haven't been asked that one before.
Yeah, I was thinking mostly for like performance reasons, right? Because I mean, obviously encryption is going to add a little bit of compute and data size overhead. And I just was thinking if somebody's mission was, I need to do these inserts as fast as humanly possible. So
yeah, I
was curious.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, with all those connection options, when you're working with DBA teams and you're working with data teams, you want to have a lot of different ways that this is going to be configured from both a security and a networking standpoint. If you don't have the options, you're not going to be able to help them. So we try to give a really, really wide range. I'm not going to tell you we solve everything, but it's a pretty good list of options there.
Well, and I mean, having a security first stance is never a bad thing. So I get it.
No, absolutely. Anonymize data every chance you can, encrypt all the time, those types of things. And we, I think over the years, talked about starting in 2012, I think we've learned a lot from our partners like Microsoft, like what are the best practices around that? How do you want to do this in the most, not only in the most expeditious way in terms of speed, but ensuring that you've also got the risk mitigation, the compliance, the governance, security around those data sets as you're moving. So you can see, so again, connecting Oracle RDS database to Azure Synapse. You can see all these tests that there's been no code so far, which is good because I'm not a coder. We've run all these tests in the background, and okay, great. We get this nice green bar. Connection tests have passed. Let's continue on. The next thing that Fivetran is going to do is say, okay, let's go out to that Oracle destination, Kelly, and I'll tell you what you have authenticated for and what you have access to in terms of the schemas that you can persist over to Synapse, the tables and the columns. And you can see I've got 30 schemas out here. Let's collapse that. There's not a chance I want to do that many schemas today. I've just got a use case that involves my agriculture data, agriculture schema. So let me get rid of all those. Let's go out to agriculture and let's turn that one on. And let's grab these two tables. I've got two of my favorite beverages. Wine or coffee? Which one would you prefer? Guess time of day?
Coffee.
Yeah.
For me.
Coffee before noon, wine afternoon. Yeah.
What's your favorite coffee? What version of it?
Oh,
just black.
Yeah, I grind my own beans and I brew it myself. But
if we're gonna get coffee snobbish about it, I have a subscription service. I get it from this roastery in Raleigh, North Carolina called Counterculture. If you've never heard of them, I'd recommend you check them out. They're really good.
Very nice, very nice. We do bulletproof here, grind, and then a variety of different things. So yeah, I'm big on both these. So I was just going to show you. So we'll persist both of these tables over. There's not a lot of data in these. There's not a lot of columns, but one of the things that's kind of interesting here is you see this little unhash that is popping up. Let's say you've got a PII column, or you think it's a PII column. Maybe it's SSN, DL, maybe it's a bank account number or something like that. I could actually say, for like California wine, let's see what else. I don't know. Let's just go commodity code. That's obviously not PII, but let's just say it was. I can actually hash that here. And that's cool. I mean, being able to do that and still use commodity code or driver's license or SSN in my downstream analytics engineering workflow and know that the data is anonymized is great. what's even better, we're very close to releasing auto PII detection. And guess what we're using for that? You guys familiar with Microsoft Presidio? The auto PII detection solution that's incorporated into the Microsoft Tapestry, that's what we're actually using. So
Gotcha.
you look at doing that auto recognition and auto anonymization, all those kind of things. Very, very cool. Not here yet, but maybe the next time we demo with you, you'll see it. So we'll hash, remember on, which one is that? That's on California wine. We'll hash the commodity code. In fact, let's just take California wine. So we'll take all these columns over, commodity code is hashed, save and continue. I talked about earlier, so Fivetran is going to persist all that California wine information over to a complete historical sync. I could have done, by the way, all 30 schemas. I could have done all the tables. We're not for this short demo. Second thing, Fivetran is going to set you up for incremental CDC for pretty much every single one of our connectors. There's a couple of file connectors we don't do it for. Other than that, you get CDC across all 500 of those connectors. So when something changes in the source, Fivetran is going to pick up that change, and only that change is going to be persisted over. I'm going to allow all today. I could block if I want to.
So was that question there just allowing schema drift? Is that what I saw there?
Yeah, I get
okay.
to make a designation up front when I set up this connector on how I want to handle that. We handle all the schema drift. We handle DML changes, DDL changes, anything that goes on in that source. Okay. We're going to give you a faithful representation, one-to-one source to Synapse, and that's so important. I can come back, and you see our connectors actually syncing data for the first time. I can come back to my schema tab later on if I want, and I could add to that, and I could even change how I want my source to interact with my target. Maybe I want a timestamp, maybe I want a soft delete, those types of things.
Right.
So while that's syncing, you see Oracle RDS to Synapse. We've got, this is our, that'll be our schema name, and then our tables or actually we just did one table. That'll come out behind that California wine production. You see our status here, blow this out to 1 hour. We'll be able to see it come up here in a second. Here's what's going on behind the scenes. You go, Kelly, that looked, pretty simple. And I'm Central Time, so it's 12:40 my time when we created this connector, and I've been talking a lot, and it's 12:47 now. Probably with that amount of data, it'll sync pretty quickly. You can come in and see everything that's going on, all of these things that Fivetran is doing to, create, build, maintain, document, automate behind the scenes, those things that you would have to do on your own. Schema we talked about, I can add. You can see that my California wine production is a soft delete. I can move that to a timestamp if I want to, those kind of things. My usage, we give you every initial sync, every first or historical sync, some people call it, you get for free. Doesn't matter how, this is a tiny data set for our initial, but every historical sync is free. This could be a terabyte or something. Then, just finished. You see that next sync will run. Then your incrementals. We probably, this one defaulted to 6 hours, which is typical for us. I could set that for 5 minutes. My incremental syncs are free for 14 days. And what happens, the reason I'm mentioning that, after 7 days, you're gonna start getting a sense of usage here. What's changing in our consumption metric? We are consumption based, pure SaaS, fully automated, fully managed. Our consumption metric is something called MAR. So it's basically how many times did an individual row change during the course of the month? It's irrelevant how many times that one row changed, but if one row changed during the course of the month, that's our consumption metric, and it decelerates with volume and all that kind of thing. But that's what we're measuring. You get a sense for each connector there. So I know we're probably running short. I'm getting way too long-winded here.
That's a great model, by the way. I like that model. That encourages usage, right? Exploration, getting starper
It does, and it's something, it's hard to wrap your head around. Like, the more data that I persist into Synapse, my per row cost, if you will, with the Fivetran side is going to go down. And I'm getting more data sets into Synapse or into Azure Databricks, and theoretically my data outcome value is actually going to go up. I'm doing it faster. I'm doing it quicker. I'm getting more data in that importantly, I didn't talk about this a lot, but Fivetran is going to give you, I talked about a faithful representation. We're going to normalize the data. We're going to data type it out for you. It's going to be usable and understandable and very organized. So real quick, and I'll wrap this one up and we can go on to other topics if we want, but remember this schema name that I had, and remember we had, I think I showed Animal Crossing was our top level table here. Let me do a refresh of my tables in my Synapse instance, and there you go. We've got Accelerate, Microsoft, Oracle. I've got agriculture, remember that California wine production. I get a bonus table here. I get a Fivetran audit table. We won't spend any time on that right now, but if I come out here, I'm definitely not a SQL guru, so please don't ask me to write any complex SQL. But how about this? I got a nice little select here, top 100 that comes out of the box with Synapse. That helps people like me, by the way. I love that. And so I'm going to come out here, and I've got a nice little data preview. This is the data we just persisted into Synapse. Let's go. We probably got a Fivetran synced. Here's our date today. Where was our hash column? Did we do commodity code?
Commodity code, yep.
I think it was commodity code.
Yeah, that's obviously a hash.
There's your hash. Now, we're going to maintain the key, and downstream, if I'm developing a Power BI report or a Power Apps application or something like that, whatever's going against Synapse as a data product or data service, maintaining the key, and I can still use commodity code in my downstream analytics engineering workflow. So that's Fivetran in a nutshell. Questions, comments, thoughts?
Yeah, this is great, and I really like that idea of the deterministic hash. Curious how that would work across different tables. If you're hashing the same value, is the key decided on a per table, per column? Like I'm curious.
All right, like if you had to join on something, if you ended up having to join on a column that you hashed, yeah.
Right.
I believe it's at the column level, but I'm going to put a asterisk, a caveat with that. I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure. Because we're still, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'll go ahead. You finish your thought.
I was just going to say, because we're at each individual column level, that's where we're making that determination.
Okay. Because one of the things that I was thinking about, just when you talked about the fact that like your initial historical load is free, I think that's a really compelling licensing model because it doesn't let the cost of a migration get in the way of adoption. Right. So, do you see that being a huge differentiator for you in sales opportunities?
Chris, that's interesting because we don't consider ourselves a migration tool, but using Fivetran to move, 10, 100, 200 Oracle databases into Synapse at no cost is really interesting. You could do that. Our hope would be, here's our hope. You go, wow, okay, so I need to, I'm going to need those incremental changes that are hitting those Oracle databases or the DB2 database or SQL Server. I want those changes persisted into Synapse. I want the most recent data. So our hope would be that we do get to start capturing, monetization events as those changes start persisting. You leave those connectors up and running. But yeah, I mean, theoretically, you could do a one-time migration like that.
I wasn't asking specifically as a migration tool. I was thinking more of, hey, let's say I've got an on-premises data warehouse and I'm thinking about moving to the cloud, but oh my gosh, it's going to be too expensive to move all that data up there. It's going to be too difficult or whatever. And the cost of doing all that ingress into the cloud, not from a necessarily because, the egress is free from an on-premises data source. I was thinking more from a cost of, like, hey, what's the cost from who have to pay for licensing, like the running an ADF job in order to do that data load is going to be expensive, or the amount of ETL that I'm going to have to write literally just to forklift the data into the cloud is going to be expensive. So it seems like this could be a really compelling way to get that initial seed, even if the initial seed is throwaway code, because the destination is the cloud. Just the pain of doing that migration seems like it would be a lot less in this scenario.
This demo, one of the downsides of this demo, you go, oh, that must just be a little toy and you have to throw this away. This is actually a production pipeline. Every time this thing incrementally syncs, if I don't delete this connector, it will keep going. Right. We're going to keep syncing every 6 hours over and over and over. And Fivetran is going to assume I want to capture those changes in that Oracle database. what is interesting to what you said too is, I think we talk about Fivetran value. You saw how fast this was to set up. If we go back to the logs real quick, let's just see. So we created the connector at 1240. Where's our sync start? Somewhere in here. We'll just go 1240. I don't want to, there it is. Sync start at 1246 and then by 1252. So the total duration, again, small data set, obviously, if we had a larger data set, but I mean, I usually tell people within, roughly 10 minutes or so, you can have data very easily syncing into Synapse, syncing in Azure Databricks, or syncing into an Azure SQL destination. It's 10 minutes or less to onboard new data sources. 100% of the time, we are always going to load. We will have a faithful representation. If we don't, we're going to keep trying. We have something called idempotence that is built into the platform to keep trying. You get that flexibility, the downstream changing needs as you have organized and understandable data. Then third thing is, I don't put a burden. Fivetran does not put a burden on your data engineering and data application development teams. Focus in on the data outcomes you're developing within Synapse and within the broader Microsoft services context. Don't spend that time, that 44%, trying to keep data pipelines up and running.
I'm glad you mentioned that, specifically the migrating the idempotent. Is there a concept? I see you have alerts there. Is there a conflict resolution? Does that ever come up depending on, say, the data source?
Oh, absolutely. And again, pure SaaS. You saw for this, there was no infrastructure we spun up or anything. So first thing, 99.97 uptime across. We've got, gosh, I'm gonna totally misstate how many connectors we have running, but it is in the tens of thousands. It's a lot of connectors. Just on the database side, I know the number is 30,000 database connectors. So a significant amount there, 99.97. But if something is not able to be resolved, so all we do is data movement. That's it. So data movement platform, we've got about 320, 330 engineers. That is all they do. If there is something that needs to be resolved with engineering, then we will actually do that as well. So again, it's not easy to get 99.97, as you know, and so it's this combination of tremendous amounts of automation on the back end. The demo doesn't do it justice on what's actually happening, but also an incredible group of engineers that are also working behind the scenes too.
One final question I have, I think it's a final question. Who knows? Might find more. One concept that comes up quite a bit, especially for international companies, are data sovereignty requirements. So if you're moving data from, say Oracle, as you had here, I didn't read what region it's in, but anyway, anything implemented for companies that require and have certain restrictions around data sovereignty?
Well, I guess the way I'll answer that, it may not be exactly the answer you're looking for, but we support today Azure regions all over the world. So that's the way that I'll do my best to answer that. As a customer that comes in for the Fivetran SaaS, I can determine where I want to have my processing done, if you will. Like when I set up my destination, I can say I want this in Azure, Central or Azure East or Azure West or in Azure worldwide location. So I get that level of customization, I guess, for that localization that I need. Do we cover every Azure region and every corner of the world? Not yet, but hopefully we'll catch up. But pretty much anywhere you sit, you're going to have an option for sure.
Right. Yeah, and I can't remember which one. I think like Germany has some pretty specific rules, like data that's born in Germany can't leave Germany type of thing. So, so if I'm assuming that like if a customer came to you and had some really specific sovereignty questions, bring us the question and we'll figure it out, right? So,
yeah. It's interesting. Those are the kind of things too that I think you look at. The incredible work that Microsoft is doing with OpenAI and ChatGPT, and how can we use generative AI as part of some of that, decision making and automation in the background. We're doing some of that today, by the way, which is, I'm not going to talk about it right now, but really interesting in terms of how we're developing connectors. And I think those types of decision making processes could, maybe in another, Chris, 12, 18, 24 months, you could see some reality around even automation there as well.
Well, this has been a lot of really great information, Kelly. Out of curiosity, so if a customer or partner wanted to go engage with you guys today, how do they get started?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. The partnership with Microsoft has been going really, really well. I've got a little bit of a long URL. I'll send, maybe can attach it to the show notes or something like that. But I would direct you or direct customers to the partner page. But even easier, fivetran.com/sign up. So we talked about this 14-day free trial. Do your initial syncs for free. If you want to get Fivetran connected up to any of the Azure services like Synapse, like Azure Databricks and others, fivetran.com/sign up. 14-day free trial. By the way, no credit card needed, which is pretty awesome. So that's what I would say. That's the easy button, I guess, to get rolling with Fivetran.
Great.
And Fivetran is in the Azure Marketplace as well. I guess if I didn't mention that, I should have mentioned that too. So that's a great way to, if you're a big Azure customer today, get going with Fivetran quickly. Go out to the Marketplace, access that free trial that way.
Yeah, and a lot of customers that sign up for big Mac agreements and things like that like to go out and buy things to the Marketplace because it helps them retire that commitment. So
absolutely, I love that.
For sure. Yep.
Well, this has been a fantastic discussion. I really appreciate the insights here, Kelly. Everything that you and everybody at Fivetran has been doing really solves such a growing issue of data integration, because it's only getting more and more complex over the last few years. So really cool stuff, and really appreciate the time in showing us how it works.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Brian,
it was great talking with you.
Yeah, Brian and Chris, it was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed this experience of getting to do demo in the context of a podcast. I haven't seen this before. This is really, really cool. So thank you for inviting me on. Great to talk about the Fivetran Microsoft partnership, and anytime would love to be a guest.
Great.
Sure. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for coming, and thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Microsoft Partner Showcase.
Thanks for joining us in this Microsoft Partner Showcase. We hope you enjoyed learning about Fivetran. In the description below, we'll put links mentioned throughout the episode so you can get started with Fivetran or sample Chris's favorite coffee. Hope to see you in the next episode.